स्वच्छ भारत का इरादा इरादा कर लिया हमने देश से अपने ये वादा कर लिया हमने।
एक पवित्र सी हवा बहेगी,
उज्ज्वल उज्ज्वल हो भारत,
कोना कोना निर्मल होगा,
विश्व कहेगा जय भारत।
जाग उठेंगे भाग्य हमारे, स्वच्छ बनेगा ये भारत।
स्वच्छ भारत का इरादा इरादा कर लिया हमने देश से अपने वादा कर लिया हमने, वादा कर लिया
Cosmopolitan Bengaluru is India's second fastest growing city. Predictably, with this growth in population is a growth in waste generation. How does Bengaluru deal with it? Has it resulted in mountains of waste dumped by the roadside? Has it resulted in piles of burning trash? Not at all. See how Bengaluru is using multiple models to handle all this waste with flying colors. Unsegregated waste processing plants, biomethanization plants, dry waste centers, festival waste management, self-sustainable apartments, entrepreneurial models for waste pickers. With a population of more than 84 lakhs, Bengaluru is one of the most densely populated cities of India. The per capita average waste generated in Bengaluru is between 400 grams to 600 grams daily, which translates into approximately 3,175 metric tons of solid waste every single day. Some even believe that this is a conservative estimate. Like most other cities, the responsibility of managing solid waste of the city falls on the Bruhat Bengaluru Mahanagar Palike or BBMP. Until July 2012, the city transported about 3,000 to 4,000 tons of unsegregated waste daily to landfills outside the city in Mandur, Mavalipura and 2 other abandoned quarries. What was BBMP's strategy? The key focus was to keep waste in the backyard, something few municipalities can imagine. This meant segregation into wet, dry and hazardous waste at source, allocating space for decentralized waste segregation in localities, which was the backbone of the Yes in My Backyard policy, encouraging composting in collaboration with citizen groups, engaging citizens groups towards a decentralized solid waste management policy, BBMP first initiated a system of door-to-door collection of segregated trash. Today, the waste collectors go with their containers to each floor of the building allocated to them to collect segregated waste from apartments. The waste collected from households is transported directly to one of the 10 waste processing units on the outskirts of the city. 7 of these processing units are run by BBMP, while 3 are run under the public-private partnership model. The total processing capacities of these units is 4,500 tons per day. Private contractors collect waste from various localities in the city, transporting them to these units. Before the waste reaches the processing units, segregation is ensured. The segregated waste are collected separately in different vehicles. The Dodar Bidara Kalu processing units gets unsegregated waste from areas that do not sort out waste in their localities. A key component of the currently functioning waste management system in Bengaluru is decentralized solid waste management. To encourage segregation at source and make decentralized solid waste management a reality, households were introduced to the 2-bin, 1-bag system.
The 2-bin and 1-bag introduced by government, court also. Now green bin for the wet waste and red bin for the rejects, that's medical waste, and white bag is for the dry waste. All the dry now weekly twice we can take, and wet now daily we have it has to go, and sanitary also. Even in Bengaluru we have made in all 8 zones as a pilot for sanitary waste also, and we have empaneled scientific vendors. We are giving to them. And dry also we have dry waste collection centers. Out of 198 wards now we have 170 dry waste collection centers.
All the e-waste is affected and sent for recycling.
However, for this system to be successful, educating citizens, especially children, about segregation of waste at source was vital. The BBMP has played a proactive role in convincing residents of societies to segregate the waste at source.
I'll go mom and say that you should always segregate things in dry waste and wet waste. Peels of vegetables, of carrots, cucumbers, everything. We should put it in a trash bin which has holes.
Our kids, they should have good environment. We need to work on this. Then we can reduce the waste and recycle the waste, and we can reuse the waste. That's the main concept we are doing.
Decentralized solid waste management marks a shift in attitude from not in my backyard to yes in my backyard, encouraging city communities to allocate space and resources for decentralized waste processing centers in their neighborhoods. Firstly, 16 biomethanization units, 2 in each zone, are being established, out of which 4 have been made functional. These plants process 5 tons of wet waste daily to produce biogas. The biomethanization plant is divided into dry and wet waste units. The waste that comes from hotels and offices is taken into this plant. The dry waste is brought to a separate unit where it is weighed and segregated into different forms of plastic and dry waste. The wet waste is processed to produce biogas. The waste is crushed into a slurry and then fed into large vessels for anaerobic digestion. The plants help to light streets in that locality, providing a non-polluting and renewable source of energy. In order to recycle the plastic waste, a proposal to establish a plant with a capacity of 10 tons per day to process plastic waste into crude oil has been approved by the government. There are also dry waste collection centers where dry waste generated in the wards is collected and further segregated and sent for recycling. Municipal solid waste, or MSW, in Bengaluru contains a large organic fraction ranging from 30 to 50% of the total waste. Some of this waste can be composted to produce manure for soil. It is a relatively easy waste processing technique and thus is being undertaken by communities themselves or with the help of the municipal authorities. With the initiative of the corporation and the Residents' Welfare Association, Sahas is one such NGO which is working on this model.
This particular unit was set up in 2010. It has a capacity about 1 ton per day, about 300 to 400 kgs of wet waste per day, and about 600 kgs of dry waste. So when this unit was set up, we worked very closely with the community around to engage them towards the concept of segregation at source. So people were segregating, and the segregation level that we have achieved is close to 70 to 80%. Once the waste comes to this unit, we have physically kept them apart. The wet waste is basically composted, and dry waste is sorted in about 15-20 categories and sent for recycling. The wet waste, although as I said it is about 80% segregated, there is likely to be some amount of plastic in it, and compost quality will not be good if you have plastic being decomposed along with the organic waste. So there is some amount of pre-sorting which is done to pull out these plastic items, and then we put it through a machine called organic waste converter, which is nothing but it pulverizes the compost to reduce the moisture content as well as the volume. And then we add by 50% volume dry components, which could be dry waste, dry leaves if available, sawdust, or we also used old compost for the same thing. By adding dry leaves, you increase the amount of carbon in the compost, and the compost that comes out will have a appropriate proportion of carbon and nitrogen in it. And after that, it is put into tanks. So we have 6 such tanks. So typically it will be there in the tanks for about 21 days. That is when the leachate has come out, it has composted to a large extent, and then it is put out for curing for another 20 days. So that is the composting process. While the dry waste, as I said, it is manually sorted in various categories, then stored here, and as and when we have sufficient quantity of different categories, this is sent for recycling. So for glass, for plastic, paper, metal, so as I said, about 15 to 20 categories in all. But the focus remains that you accept only segregated waste into the unit.
In Yelahanka, residents of the Prakriti apartments segregate their wet, dry and sanitary waste in their homes.
It is an apartment of 200 people, 200 apartments, and here the amount of waste that was generated earlier was all mixed up and it was too messy. That is when we realized that if at all we manage our waste within our, at source, whatever we generate, if at all it is managed there, then it becomes much easier for us and also for the BBMP to manage it. So what we started here in our apartment is we started with the process of segregation. The Swachhagraha campaign which they started of 2 bin 1 bag was really great. So that is where we understood that we can always segregate in a nice form like wet, dry and reject. Every day the housekeeping comes. Housekeeping has been trained enough to collect all the 3 forms in 3 different bags or buckets. So wet, dry and reject is collected by the housekeeping and get to the, we have the composting process here going on. We process 125 kg of wet waste on a daily basis right inside the campus. So no wet waste right now goes out of the campus from here. So once it comes here, mixes with the composting media and then you run it through the shredder. It is just like chewing your own food before you digest it. You run it through the shredder and the shredded material is put in the digesters. They put half and half in each. So, and that cycle takes about 45 days to complete, and we harvest the manure after 45 days.
The recyclable rejects are sold twice a week to a recycler who purchases all types of recyclable waste on a lump sum contract basis. This percentage is gradually increasing, with more apartments taking to processing waste within their premises.
Now, being educated citizens, we need to take up that responsibility of segregating at source within our campus. Whatever we can do, we should be able to do it so that BBMP can do the needful for the rest, because we cannot process dry and reject here. But if we serve BBMP in the right form, then BBMP will be able to give us back in return in the right form.
These steps are also benefiting the waste pickers as they get a regular source of livelihood and a sense of empowerment. Then there are those who have gone a step further in setting up their own waste processing units. Anamma is one such example.
I had saved a little money to buy a house. I used that basic capital to invest in this.
I'm rotating that fund itself, and today I'm running such a good center. Earlier, when I was going and picking up waste from the street, I would save maximum 200 rupees. I would earn, but I wouldn't have money to keep for myself. Today, even if I earn 1 rupee 50 paise, I'm keeping aside money for myself. One of the benefits is that I'm sending my daughter to RC college, which is expensive. But I'm able to do it because I have this dry waste collection center.
ಅದಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರ ಇದು ನಮಗೆ ತುಂಬ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ನಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ.
Often waste pickers are not included well enough. But the BBMP realized early that they were key allies in cleaning up the city. Hence, they worked with citizen groups to issue iCards and help them to be recognized in various ways, including by accessing social security. Bengaluru's road to zero waste has not been without hurdles. The BBMP is working to enhance institutional capacity in order to implement and sustain the city's new vision for waste management. There is still resistance from some neighborhoods and communities who do not want waste processing centers to be placed in their vicinity. To overcome this challenge, the BBMP is now working towards education and encouraging citizen participation in waste segregation. Bengaluru has put the old adage, "Not in my backyard," upon its head by in fact showing how sensible and viable the idea of "yes in my backyard" is for managing waste. Every other city must learn from this new way of thinking if we are to achieve a truly Swachh Bharat.